The American empire does not rely on colonies. It relies on a four-part mechanism designed to extract wealth and enforce compliance without needing physical occupation. This machine operates through finance, intelligence, warfare, and diplomatic immunity. Its architecture is quiet, clinical, data-driven, and historically verifiable. It begins in July 1944 at the Mount Washington Hotel in New Hampshire. Here, the Bretton Woods Conference created the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. They were framed as development institutes, but their operational logic evolved into something else entirely. The core mechanism is the Structural Adjustment Programs, SAPs. When countries fail to repay debt, the IMF enforces austerity measures, currency devaluations, subsidy cuts, wage freezes, privatization of state assets, and opening domestic markets for foreign corporations. The impact is measurable. According to UNCTAD, between 1970 and 2018, developing countries paid around $11 trillion in interest payments alone. Meanwhile, according to Global Financial Integrity data, between 1980 and 2012, the net flow of resources moved in reverse. $16 trillion left the developing world and moved to the West through illicit financial flows, debt repayments, profit repatriation, and structural adjustments. Real examples are brutal. In Zambia, the IMF pressured the government in the 1990s to privatize its copper mines. Within months of privatization, the state lost nearly $1 billion in revenue, while Western mining firms increased profit margins as high as 70%. In Jamaica, the IMF reforms forced the elimination of food subsidies and currency devaluation in the 1980s. The price of the basic goods tripled. Local farmers collapsed under cheap American imports. In 1997, Indonesia was ordered to end subsidies on basic goods as part of its bailout package. The price of kerosene jumped by over 70% in a single year. When economic pressure fails, the second gear activates, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. This is not conjecture, it's a documented pattern. In 1953, under Operation Ajax, the CIA spent $1 million to overthrow Iran's Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh after he nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. In 1954, Operation PB Success toppled Guatemala's president Jacobo Ordóñez. Declassified documents confirm that the United Fruit Company lobbied directly for this intervention. By the 1960s, the tactic industrialized. In Brazil, in 1964, the CIA supported a military coup that removed President João Goulart after he pushed for land reforms targeting multinational companies. In Congo, 1961, the CIA played a role in the removal and assassination of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba after he attempted to nationalize resources. The most chilling was Indonesia. In 1965, the CIA supplied the army with radios and lists of suspected communists. The Jakarta method killed between 500,000 and 1 million civilians. Declassified US State Department cables show American diplomats reporting the killings with approval. During the Cold War, according to political scientist Lindsay O'Rourke, the United States attempted 64 covert regime changes and 6 overt ones. The third pillar is the military-industrial complex. The United States maintains more than 750 military bases across 80 countries. This global presence costs money. In 2022, the US spent $877 billion on defense, nearly 40% of global military spending. The next 10 countries combined spent less. This spending feeds an entire ecosystem. The Brown University Costs of War project found that since 2001, the Pentagon spent about $14 trillion. Private contractors claimed between one-third and one-half of that. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon derive a majority of their revenue directly from the US government. Lockheed Martin alone earned more revenue from the Pentagon than many countries earn in GDP. Between 2001 and 2020, defense contractor stocks outperformed the S&P 500 by nearly 58%. War becomes an economy. The Iraq War produced measurable corporate windfalls. Halliburton's subsidiary KBR secured more than $39 million in contracts. The Afghanistan war consumed $2.3 trillion. A US government watchdog report noted that the Afghan reconstruction effort lost $80 billion to fraud, waste, and abuse. The empire profits even from failure. The fourth pillar protects the machinery from international accountability. The United Nations Security Council veto. Since 1970, the United States has used its veto more than any other permanent member. Over 80 vetoes. 53 of them were deployed to shield Israel from criticism and sanctions. The number can vary. Beyond Israel, the United States vetoed resolutions condemning South Africa's apartheid government in the 1980s. Resolutions calling for investigation into war crimes and resolutions regulating nuclear weapons. The veto functions as a shield. No matter the scale of civilian deaths, invasion, coups, or covert operations, no case reaches international prosecution. No judge bangs the gavel. The system becomes self-protecting. This cycle is mathematically consistent. The banks create the debt. The intelligence removes leaders who resist the debt. The military enforces the global structure. The veto prevents any prosecution of this structure. This is not a conspiracy. It's an operating manual of the American empire.